So last class we did my presentation as one of the sources. We looked at a primary source, right? Two sources for these questions we're working on. This class, we're going to look at secondary sources, meaning Gotham, the text for this class, and a historian who looked at primary sources and then wrote their opinion, quoted from it, gave you their thoughts. So we're going to look at secondary sources today, and we're looking at video today, okay? And all of this is answering the 7 questions about Peter Stuyvesant in New Amsterdam. So did everybody get these questions? If you didn't get these questions, then in the chat, send Oleg a note and he can get it to you. But you should have these questions, okay? Is anybody just in terms of right now, anybody not have these questions? Just tell me right now. All right, by your silence, I think you all have these questions. Okay, so these are 7.
It's the one with Stuyvesant, right?
It's the one that starts out, describe New Amsterdam when Peter Stuyvesant arrived, page 43 in Gotham. You got that?
Yeah, I got that. Thank you.
All right, so the good news is we're going to be going over all these questions today and Thursday, and you're going to write answers to them. And those answers I had said are due Friday, but that's not going to be fair or going to happen. So the answers for these 7 questions are due the Monday after spring break. So can I hear a round of applause? Can I just see some signals of hands clapping or something for extend? Thank you. So the deadline, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Teacher of the year right now. Let's do the evaluation. Let's get it over with. All right, so these questions on Stuyvesant and Amsterdam, we're going to be going over the answers today and Thursday, and then you'll be writing and send them in a week from Monday, okay? And the questions that were due yesterday, you know, most of you sent them in. I'll be grading them this week. Not grading, I'll be correcting them this week and sending them back to you with no grade. But this one, the one on New Amsterdam and Peter Stuyvesant, will be the first piece of work that I will both correct and grade, okay? So that's why I want you to wait a little bit and not do it until you get more feedback from me on the questions that you sent in on Hudson and Jewett. So you get a feel for what I'm looking for. But this assignment, which is due a week from Monday on Stuyvesant and New Amsterdam, will be graded. And that's why I want to give you more time, and I want to go over all the answers with you today. Okay, are there any questions before I move on?
I have a question.
Christian?
What was the assignment that was due yesterday?
It were the questions on Henry Hudson and Robert Jewett. They were, I think they were the first 5 questions. Do you have those questions, Christian?
No.
All right. Oleg, do you have those questions? You can send them to Christian. You're going to get them right away, Christian. And so
Thank you.
You're not feeling well, right?
No.
All right. So I don't want you to work on these questions today or tomorrow. So Thursday morning at 9 a.m., press send, but I want you to take it easy and not, you know, I want you to relax and drink liquids and get better before you work on these questions, okay? So I'm giving you an extension. No, those aren't the questions, Oleg. It's the one on Henry Hudson and Jewett. It's the one that was last week. Christian, we'll send it to you, but I don't want you to work on it until you feel better, okay?
That's fine, Professor.
And I'll give you an extension. The most important thing, this is a message for everybody, is your health. All right? I know I'm passionate about history and I'm passionate about LaGuardia and I love this course, but I do have a priority, and my priority is that all my students stay healthy. So no. It's the one we're working on today, but the one for homework was Hudson and Jewett was last week, and Christian needs a copy of that. If you can't find it, Oleg, let me know. I'll find it and send it to Christian. Okay.
I also need the ones that are due today as well.
Say that again.
I also need the ones that were due last night as well.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, is the ones that we do last night. All right, we're gonna get you both copies. Oleg's gonna dig them up. Last week's questions and this week's questions. Okay, so I'm going to repeat, because it's important for me to repeat this, that in all your answers to all these questions, and you may want to write this down. I want examples. I want quotes. I need to know when things happen. I need you to give me citations, meaning putting in, hi Francesca, putting in brackets your source. And I need your thoughts. I need to know what you think. Okay? The other thing to keep in mind when you're answering these questions is the 5 W's. Just review it and make sure you've told me who's involved, what's involved, why this happens, which is your thoughts, by the way, when it happened, and where it happened. The most difficult part in your answer is the why, because it involves you telling me what you think about what you're writing. And students aren't used to doing that. But in this class, that's one of the most important parts of this class, is respect for your intellect and respect for your thoughts. And so even if it feels funny, I want you to put it down. Something you're thinking about as you're writing. I don't care what it is. You could be thinking about last night's dinner or someone that you are annoyed at. I want you to get into the habit of giving me your thoughts. Hopefully, they'll relate to what you're writing about. But in the beginning, I don't care, because I want you to start getting me what you're thinking about while you're answering this question, okay? And I'll help you shape that. Okay, so it's very important that you start to give me what's in your mind and what you're thinking about. Any questions before we go on? Okay, so let's look at, Ola, can you put it on the share screen? The describe New Amsterdam when Peter Stuyvesant arrived. Okay, so this is, thank you, Oleg. So this is, you should all have this. It's 115A. This is the Xeroxes from Gotham that have all the answers to the questions I've raised, the 7 questions. Today, for this class, we're going to continue to focus on question 3, which we looked at last class with primary sources. Today, we're going to look at it on page 43 and 46 of Gotham. So can you make it a little bigger, Oleg? No, a little bigger, is it, or you can't? Is that as big as it gets?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can always try Control Plus.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay, move it over so we can see the whole, you have to move it over on your screen, Oleg, so we can see it.
yeah.
All right, that's good. Okay, so now scroll up, because we're going to start reading it from uppermost in Stuyvesant's mind was the need to turn New Amsterdam into the kind of community that would appeal to the Dutch taste. Everybody see that? Okay. Ivan, you want to read that first paragraph for us?
Yeah, starting from uppermost.
Yeah.
Uppermost in Stuyvesant's mind was the need to turn New Amsterdam into the kind of community that would appeal to the Dutch taste for well-regulated urban life. For the Netherlands, unlike, say, England, was a nation of town dwellers known for their civic consciousness and for the love of public tidiness that had led them to adopt the broom as a symbol of national identity and purpose. No sooner had he arrived, therefore, than Stuyvesant began to sweep New Amsterdam into shape with a succession of edicts, decrees, and orders. They would continue to stream from his pen for the next 17 years, joined after 1653 by a torrent of ordinances from the burgomasters he appointed to New Amsterdam's first municipal government.
Okay, so let me give you my thoughts. to give you an example of what I mean by giving your, and you can use my thoughts if you want. It's always very important when you move and when you migrate to recreate a former way of life. And you must know in your own life, having moved from either an apartment to another apartment, from your homeland to the United States, if you look around your house, you will see things in your house that your family or you yourself recreated so you feel more comfortable in your new dwelling. Does anybody have an example of that? Anybody have an example of something in their home today that was recreated by you or a family member to sort of make you feel a little more comfortable about the new space?
I guess I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was born in Saudi Arabia, so it's a very religious country, and I was raised near the holy city of Mecca. And my parents used to visit every weekend there to take the pilgrimage and all that. And when we came to America, like a decade later, my mom, she took all of her paintings, all the Arabic calligraphy that she had, and somehow kept the actual cover of the Kaaba, the pillar in Mecca, and she brought it with her, even though like it was a whole mess in the customs. And she was like, I want to keep it. I want to bring it over to America to my house. And I still have it after 15 years. It's right in the living room.
And you still have it, it's hanging in the living room?
Yep.
Can you take a picture of it and send it to me and give me permission to share it with the class?
Yeah, I'm sure thing.
Okay, so take a picture of it, Atta, and write a sentence or two about what it means to you and how it comforts you. Or you may want to interview your mother and ask her, because this is exactly what went on in New Amsterdam. And this goes on with all of you. And if you want, in writing your answers to question 3, you can quote me or you can quote Atta in terms of, or yourself, in terms of this is what we do. So although we're reading about the Dutch more than 300 years ago, Atta just described it for himself, and I do the same thing. And if you look behind me, there's all kinds of stuff, my stuff, that when I moved into this place, you know, upstate New York to escape COVID, I recreated and put objects around that made me feel comfortable, and I could call it home. And that's what I want you to get at, your feeling of home, because that's what Peter Stuyvesant was doing with New Amsterdam. He was recreating a Dutch town. And so part of the recreation of a Dutch town, because Amsterdam has so many canals, was they dug canals. They didn't have to have canals, but they dug canals so you could feel at home. All right, does anybody have any questions on this paragraph? Did you jot down some notes or something for yourself to remember? Because after class, it's hard to remember. Any questions before we go on?
I actually put down a question. I wrote down, what at home makes you feel at home?
Yes, and do you have an answer for that, Christian?
Not yet.
I love your answer, not yet. Okay, and that tells me, Christian, that one of the most important things I'm teaching in this course is thinking. So when you say not yet, what it means to me is that you're going to be thinking about this and looking around your home, and you'll come up with something like what Atta was talking about. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Next paragraph. One of his earliest targets. Carmela, are you well enough to read? Hello, Carmela, are you there? You're muted. Oleg, did you mute everybody?
Hi, sorry, I went to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Carmela, if you're not feeling well, I'll go on to another student. You want to read or you want to rest?
I could try and read. Where were we?
One of his earliest targets.
Okay. One of his earliest targets was the town's confounding jumble of lanes and footpaths. Stuyvesant?
What's that?
How do you say that? Stuyvesant, right?
Stuyvesant.
Stuyvesant.
Do you know where do you know the name Stuyvesant is still around in Manhattan? Have you
Yeah.
seen?
Yeah, whenever I run into it, I like never say it.
You never say it. But
It's on Steinway Street too.
what's that?
It's on Steinway Street too, right by Ditmer's Boulevard.
How do you say it again?
Stuyvesant. But Atta, what were you saying about Steinway Street?
If you go down on Steinway towards Ditmer's Boulevard, where there's the factory for the piano company, Stuyvesant is still there.
Really, there's a street name called Stuyvesant?
Yeah, and there's a whole factory that's named Stuyvesant as well, right by Ditmer's Boulevard.
You mean Steinway or Stuyvesant?
On Steinway Street, right by Ditmer's Boulevard, there is a factory that's called Stuyvesant, and there's a street called Stuyvesant by Steinway.
Do you go by it usually in your walks around your neighborhood?
Yeah, almost every day. After work, I'm actually gonna go there towards my house.
Will you send me a picture?
Sure thing.
Yeah, yeah. So this word Stuyvesant, Carmela, Atta, and everybody, comes from Peter Stuyvesant. The origins of our using that name hundreds of years later comes from this Director General of New Amsterdam who saved the town. Okay? And this jumble of lanes and footpaths, that first sentence,
Okay.
if you go below 14th Street in Manhattan, you'll experience the jumble of lanes that still exist there today. And so this organized city of Manhattan gets organized after 1811, and we put order into all the streets above 14th Street. But below 14th Street, if we could go there together today, we would again experience this jumble of streets cutting in and out of each other. And that's what the old New Amsterdam actually looked like. It was all these streets coming in on each other. Okay, Carmela, Stuyvesant named 3 surveyors.
Stuyvesant named 3 surveyors to establish reliable property lines and lay out regular streets, some of which even received names. He ordered the removal of building materials.
What's that? He ordered what?
He ordered the removal of building materials and other obstructions from the streets and imposed a speed limit on wagons and carts. In 1658, the residents of Brewer Street received permission to pave their lane with cobblestones, creating New Amsterdam's first properly surfaced roadway, now Stone Street.
So, Carmela, let me put you on the spot a minute. What you just read, why would any of that be important for stimulating a market? In other words, why would you want any of these things if the essence of making money, if the essence of your town is trade, people coming to a market, pick one of these, any of these items you just read and tell us why it would be important.
Well, I mean, the removal of building materials and other obstructions, I suppose, could make it more like people friendly, so that there can be more traffic for the business.
And this phrase, people friendly, it's a great phrase. Give me the detail or an example from this paragraph of creating a street that would be people friendly. I'm pushing you because I want the whole class to see the kind of answer I want everybody to write.
But
So,
I mean,
I like the phrase people friendly. I love the phrase. He's making it people friendly, which is so important for a market. Now, all I need is one example and you're good.
I suppose a properly surfaced roadway becomes more accessible to not only pedestrians but people with their, I suppose, like wagons and carts as well, their transportation.
Okay, that's perfect. Say it again so people can write it down and everybody could use it and
Uh-huh.
quote from what page is this? Page 43 in Gotham, and
Mhm.
also quote Carmela. All right, so what I'm looking at is taking this secondary source, I'm massaging it, and I'm getting detail. So what? You know, you're reading this, you go, so what? So what was so important in this paragraph to make New Amsterdam a better city? What was so important that we still got this guy's name here? You know, Ada says to me, he walks down the street, he sees Stuyvesant. Carmela says she hasn't pronounced it, but she sees it, right? So this guy was important. Bless you, bless you, bless you.
Sorry.
So repeat what you said about people friendly, about Stuyvesant making New Amsterdam people friendly as it relates
Mhm.
more people in the marketplace. I'll be quiet.
Stuyvesant wanted to make it more accessible so that both pedestrians and I guess wagons and carts alike can have more access to the marketplace.
You're done. You're good.
Yep.
Everybody get that? That's one thing he did. He did a lot of things, but all we have to do is from that paragraph pick out one thing he did, and we're good. And I think last class I sort of just tried to describe a cobblestone. If we were together, I'd bring one in for you. And somebody was going to send me a picture. Christian, was it you? Somebody was going to go and take a picture of a street that had cobblestone.
But I'll do that as soon as I can.
All right, I'm waiting for it. I mean, that's okay. I'll send it out to others, okay?
That's fine.
All right, Daisy, you want to do a little reading? Are you muted? Oleg, did you mute Daisy?
No, he has to unmute it by self.
Daisy, can you unmute yourself?
Let's see.
Daisy, are you there?
Daisy.
Daisy's at work, so she may have had to go off to something else, I guess. All right, Daisy's not there. Jason, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, in 1648, Stuyvesant declared war. Go ahead.
Okay. In 1648, Stuyvesant declared war on New Amsterdam's pigs, cows, goats, and horses. Residents had been accustomed to letting their animals forage freely through the town. While this helped remove accumulation of garbage, it also damaged gardens and orchards, and rooting swine had pretty well ruined the fort's sodded ramparts. Henceforth, Stuyvesant announced the shoot
Yeah, law.
would seize wayward animals and drag them to a public pound, and soldiers were authorized to shoot on sight any hog grunting its way toward the fort. What was more, residents were forbidden to throw rubbish, filth, ashes, oyster shells, dead animal, or anything like it into the streets. Householders were required to clean the road in front of their dwellings. Any privy
Privy,
that
bathroom.
any privy that released excrements.
Yeah, you want to move it up, Oleg?
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. At ground level was banned for it. Not only creates a great stench and therefore great inconvenience to the passers-by, but also makes the streets foul and unfit for use. Butchers were warned not to discard offal in the streets. In 1657, an ordinance established 5 official sites for the dumping of garbage.
Okay, so Jason, as I did with Carmela, there's a lot in this paragraph. Pick out your favorite problem and the solution that Stuyvesant came up with. What's, of all that you read, which one really struck you, made you smile, made you think, oh, that's an interesting problem of early.
There was a part where I think it was like you can't use the bathroom, I guess, outside or something,
Yeah,
or
the
like
privy-
yeah, the privy one.
yeah, go ahead.
And I just thought that was weird because like I don't want to poop where like if I'm in my living room, or in my kitchen type thing, or like just outside because it's gonna make outside smell bad.
I love it. Scroll down, Oleg, so we can see that part of the paragraph. You roll down too quickly. Oh, there it is. Jason, there it is. Any privy. Want to read it again?
All right. Any privy that released ex- excrement at ground level
Yeah.
was banned, for it not only creates a great stench and therefore great inconvenience to the passers-by, and also makes the streets foul and unfit for use.
All right. So you're focusing on that, which I love because it's your favorite. So what struck you about that again? Now that you've read it again, what struck you about this one problem in New Amsterdam that was really terrible for a marketplace? Talk about people
Like,
unfriendly, but what struck you? What caught your mind?
it's the fact that like I can't believe people are just releasing their poop, I guess, just anywhere. And then it's like you gotta think of it like it probably smells really bad outside, Like I wouldn't even want to be outside anymore if I knew people were just pooping on the streets. So I don't know, like I don't know, that just struck me because that just reminds me of New York, because like you know how sometimes you pass by, it smells like pee, and then just like dang.
Okay, so that's the problem, right? People imagine people with a lot of porta potties, a lot of these that you see them set up when there are parades and stuff. These outdoor privies, these outdoor bathrooms, right? So people had, if some were just peeing and pooping in the streets, others had these little enclosures, these outhouses, which were also emptying onto the streets. Right. So here's the problem: thousands and thousands of people doing this. Jason, what's the solution? What did Stuyvesant come up with?
Uh, Wait. Okay. Any release of I don't know if that any release of just anything from your body at ground level was just banned in general. So I'm guessing like probably have to go to like another place, like a basement or something. I don't know, like because for me it would just be like that's just nasty. Like how do you go against something like that? Like you just ban people from pooping on their floor because some
Yeah,
people
but
live on the first floor.
it's also people who have a little outhouse in the backyard and then empty it on the streets, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, that's true.
basically what he's saying is if you have this, don't empty it on the streets. Dig a hole, but don't empty on the streets. It'd be banned, and the police, the shoot, right, would come by and give you a fine or just tell you not to do it. Why do you think, in your thoughts, given that it was a market economy, why do you think Stuyvesant in banning this was improving trade? I want your thoughts.
Um, it just made for like a better marketplace because it didn't stink no more. You know what I mean? Because I don't think you want to buy food where it smells like poop, you know? And that's pretty disgusting. That's why it's just like it's just better for everything because it's gonna attract more people to come by, and the stuff that was bad before doesn't exist no more. So
Perfect. Perfect. You gave me your thoughts. So we got exactly what we wanted here. We got you lifting from this secondary source a problem in New Amsterdam, hundreds of years ago, how Stuyvesant, the guy whose name you see everywhere in the city, came up with a way to solve that. And the impact it had on the most important thing was that this was a town for trade. And you're done. You're done. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Carl, you want to do the next paragraph, to guard against the danger of fire?
Okay. The guard against the danger of fire, most of the houses here in New Amsterdam are built of wood and roofed with reeds. Stuyvesant explained, and some houses of the chimneys are of wood, which is very dangerous. He prohibited further construction of wooden chimneys. Later, trusses root of hestes were banned as well. For fire, wanderers were accompanied to see that all chimneys in town were regularly whipped. The wanderers banned in the use of the fireplace on dangerously windy days. After 1647, a fire curfew required that each evening all fire must be put out or covered up. A decade later, the burgomasters began to assemble a municipal firefighting apparatus to court ordinaries
Shoemakers.
were hired to produce 150 letters, fire blankets copied from Dutch sample. Yeah.
Okay, so what is it that you read that would tell us in your own words, what's the problem?
Problem was that in that time, in this time, the most of the houses, the chimney were wood, and that was very dangerous for fire.
Okay, so those of you taking notes,
So Stuyvesants,
Sarkar, let me just stop you a minute and say that for those students taking notes, and I hope most of you are, what you have to realize is New Amsterdam was a wooden city. The chimneys are made of wood, and they've got the roofs, the haystacks, and that's pretty dangerous, right? All right, Sarkar, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Which was very dangerous. So he wanted to change it. He wanted, he banned it, and he appointed some.
Before you go to the solution, in your own words, why would that be a problem for a town based on a market economy, based on trade? Why is that such a problem?
Because it was a problem, because food is very sensitive, wood is very sensitive for fire, especially the summertime.
Okay, so those of you who want to quote Sarkar, you say it again, Sarkar, because you said it really well. The problem with a wooden city. Go. What's the problem?
The wooden city, that means if it started fire on wood, that is really impossible to control it.
Think about this.
So it's damaged lots of houses or lots of houses. So that's why he wanted to ban it, and he wanted to keep safe environment for the cities.
All right, so to solve the problems, give us three things that he did so people can take notes on it. What are the three things that Stuyvesant did, laws, regulations he passed in terms of controlling fires? Look at that paragraph, and what do you find?
And after 1647, he required firefighting to control it, yes. And he hired 150 leathers fire blanket for the fire safety.
Okay, number one, they produced fire buckets, right?
Yeah.
Buckets that would carry water to put out the fire. People would hand off buckets to the last person, and they'd throw the bucket of water on the fire, and then the buckets would go back. Okay, that's one thing he did. Give me two more things that Stuyvesant did to prevent fires.
And another is he hired 150 leather fire blanket.
Now we got the fire buckets already. Give me two other things.
Two other things.
Yeah. What did he prohibit?
And he assembled the municipal firefighting apparatus. And
All right.
another, I don't know what is another.
Anybody else can jump in. What are two other things he did?
Want me to take a shot?
Yeah, take a shot.
So he had, there was two rules. He appointed 4 fire wardens to all chimneys in town were regularly swept, and also that every evening the fires had to be kept out or completely burned out.
All right, so you had to put your fires out in the evening. He had fire wardens inspecting, right? He had 4 fire wardens inspecting. As Sarkar said, they purchased 150 fire buckets. And I'm looking for two other things. One is wooden chimneys. I mean, think about that. People had fires in their fireplace, and they said, what do we build the chimney out of? Let's build it out of wood. How ridiculous is that? I mean, think about a wooden chimney. That's gotta stop. I mean, you think about all of that heat and all those flames going up the chimney. That's gotta cause fires. And the other thing he banned was, as I remember hearing this, the use of fireplaces on windy days. All right, so you have enough examples there, right, to write about how Stuyvesant solved the problem. Luis, what are your thoughts in hearing all of this about the problem and about the solution? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about?
Talking about the houses, right? With the wooden houses.
Yeah, what's going on in your mind as you were hearing Sarkar and Atta and me all talking? What was going on in your mind about New Amsterdam, Stuyvesant, the city? What was going on in your mind?
I think they seem pretty ahead of their time with like the solutions, because like with houses like that, like before, like it was a hazard to spread fires everywhere, and they came up with the solution to like basically firefighting before like the way it is now.
And when I'm going to push you a little bit. When you use the phrase ahead of their time, which I liked, give me one example from this paragraph that struck you and made you smile or made you say, boy, they're ahead of their time. Give me one example.
Example there, where it says Stuyvesant prohibited constructions of wooden chimneys, thatched roofs, and haystacks. And also said 4 fire wardens to see that all the chimneys. Huh?
Why did that strike you as being ahead of their time? Why did the wooden chimneys, right? The prohibiting of wooden chimneys and haystacks and 4 or 5. Why did that strike you as being ahead of their time?
Because they'll keep it like, they made an effort to keep it like maintenanced, so it wouldn't just be there like laying there at risk for a fire hazard.
Perfect. So they were thinking about the future and eliminating future risks. How'd I do?
Right.
Okay. Does everybody sort of get what we're up to here? That when you read this paragraph, you lift out some detail. What were the problems in New Amsterdam? Right? Here's a problem: fire. It's a wooden city. What are the solutions? Sarkar, Atta gave more than 3 solutions. And then I pushed Luis to give me his thoughts. And at the heart of his thoughts was he's impressed because Stuyvesant was thinking ahead of his time. He was getting ahead of the game. He was trying to solve problems before they became problems. And he was impressed by that. And that's a perfect answer. It's exactly what I want you to do. So I want you to break up into groups now. You have an idea of what I want. You know the page numbers that we're looking at. And it's page 43 and 46 in handout 115A. And then you also have Restless City, page 25 and 26. And I think that handout you should have also, Oleg, you have the number on that, the Restless City handout?
Which number?
I think it's number 126A.
126A.
Yeah, do you all have 150? You should all have 115A because we're looking at it now. Do you all have 126A as well?
I have 125.
Yeah.
I have.
No, 126A. I sent it around.
Yeah, 126A. I have it.
Yeah. Does everybody have those two handouts, 126A and 115A?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm looking at question 3, A, B, and C. The answers to those questions are mostly in handout 126A, right? Pages 25 and 26. I'm going to divide you up into groups of, how many do we have? Oh, like how many students are here?
16.
All right, you'll have to send me the participant list afterwards, so we'll figure out who's missing. But why does it show 19 on my screen?
Because 3 of us, me,
Okay.
Dr. Lieberman, and Dr. Lieberman.
I'm
I log in from your account.
All right, so we have 16. Perfect. We have 4 groups of 4, right?
Yeah, 4 groups of 4. Hold on.
Okay, so we have 4 groups of 4. You ready? Group 1 does question 3A. Group 2 does question 3B. And group 3 does question 3C. And group 4, you can decide which one you want. You can do A, B, or C. Does everybody understand what I want? So group 1, you basically do question 3A. Group 2, question 3B, and group 3, question 3C. And the 4th group, just look at A, B, and C and amongst yourselves decide which question you want to answer. Decide who in your group is going to report back to the class in terms of what you've discovered, the details of what you discovered, so other people can take notes. So you'll have to have one person in the group reporting back. And it's now 1:46. So come back in, I'll give you till 2 o'clock, okay? Come back at 2 o'clock and we can report back and then we'll take a break, okay?
Professor, can you repeat the question to group assignments? Like which group gets what?
Okay. Group 1 gets question 3A. Group 2, question 3B. Group 3, question 3C. And the 4th group can pick A, B, or C. How'd I do, Carmela?
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Ola's going to divide you up, and I'll see you at 2 o'clock for the report back, and then we'll take a break, okay? Reporting back from group 1.
Ada, if you can, that'd be.
I got you. Yeah,
ahead.
I got you. I gotta use my phone to do this, so give me 1 second.
So we were working together, but we had Ada write it all down.
All right. So it's basically 3A, Stuyvesant's decree that controls social life in New Amsterdam.
Yeah. So Stuyvesant decreed that on Sunday is the holy day, and no drinking is allowed before 2 p.m. on Sunday. And if you do, it's for takeout only. And in case of fighting, if you get caught bringing weapons or knives or having brawls out in public, you get a $100 fine. If you can't pay the fine, you have to do manual labor for half a year.
Kind of like community service.
Yeah. And also we read that on April 16, 1650, I don't know if it's for that particular day or it's a decree, bakers could only bake using white bread, but they couldn't make cakes or crackers. And the food must have been baked from clean wheat or white flour to avoid any issues with the community that it served.
So they don't complain about the bread they're getting. They were like, we want free bread, but also make that free bread good because we don't want any thin bread.
And New York gets a reputation of having quality bread. You want good bread, come to New York, right?
And bagels, right?
And bagels.
And bagels, right. And did you notice that that in this secondary source, Gotham, he's lifting from what you read in the last class from the primary source?
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch the connection between Mike Wallace, who basically, by the way, is a friend of mine who teaches at John Jay, who's one of the co-authors of this book. He read the same primary source that you read last class and lifted from that and wrote this in his history book. So he's doing exactly what we're doing in class, going from a primary source to a secondary source. And so to repeat, in terms of controlling social life, it's about Sunday prayer, no drinking, no fighting, right, with fines of $100 fine and manual labor as well as a community service. And also the quality of the bread, guaranteeing that if you come to New York, you'll get good bagels or you'll get good white bread.
Yeah.
Right? And think about it. All right, here are my thoughts. I want you to have your thoughts. Sometimes you go to a place just to get the kind of food they're selling, right? You know, you're gonna, hey, you know, people, let's go to New York because they got the best bagels or they have the best pizza. I mean, it's really interesting in terms of it being almost a law that you got to have quality bread because that'll bring people to the town.
Well, like I have an example for that. Like like Italy. Like I was there in like September of last year, and I was like, oh, I really want McDonald's right now. And the person that I was with was like, you're insane because we're getting pasta. And I'm like, I guess we have to have pasta. But I was like craving fries at the time. But he was like, you can't go to Italy and not have pasta. Like you have to have pasta. So that's like a thing. Like people go there to have pasta.
But it's a great link that you're making because McDonald's, in terms of their French fries, the reviews of McDonald's French fries have been compared to the best French fries in France. And so this whole thing about quality, whether it's McDonald's making sure they have quality French fries or Stuyvesant in 1650, was it? Making sure that the bread was of high quality. It's the same thing. It's drawing people to your McDonald's or it's drawing people to New Amsterdam. Okay? Group 2, question 3B. Who's this spokesman? Very nice work, by the way, group 1. Group 2, 3B. Stuyvesant decrees to fix the physical city.
Yeah, that's our group. So physical aspects of the city would be the ones we touched up on, which are the wooden chimneys.
Okay.
Make sure they're not made out of wood. Also have fire marshals to inspect the city, making sure certain things are not made from wood. The other one is the one with the privies facing the street. They said they will give them a certain amount of time to remove those from the streets. What else? I think that's all we got.
We got to have a third.
I think there's one more, right? Is it the one about the hogs and putting a ring through their nose?
Yeah, why
So
were
they
they
wouldn't block up the street? I don't know how that works. So,
you know,
is that to move them?
What was the problem with the hogs? What were they doing?
They were taking up space on the street and like going to the bathroom in the street.
And what else?
They were foraging. So they were like eating people's stuff.
Oh yeah.
They were eating people's root gardens. Right. So let me just say this. The hogs served a purpose in that they were like the original sanitation squad, right? They're original garbage collectors. Instead of having the garbage picked up, in front of your house, the hogs roamed around and ate all the garbage. Okay. So on the one hand, they provided a service to the city. They were the garbage collectors. But the problem was that they'd come into your garden and eat all your root vegetables, and they were pooping everywhere, right? So that had to be controlled. And putting a ring through their nose was one way to control it, and the other way was through fines and things like that. But it really was very destructive for the physical city, and physical meaning mostly your garden, actually, or also like the privies about having the city clean. I mean, having it as a clean city. Group 3, very nice work. Oh, before we go to group 3, Ivan, and who else was in your group?
Christian,
I
Dave,
was.
and Jason.
Christian and Jason and Ivan. In looking at these examples, did you have a favorite? Did you have a favorite in terms of one that you would sort of tell others about that you found more interesting than the other two?
I guess the one that Jason mentioned earlier with the privies, I think was the one that stood out there.
Yeah, everybody wants to know how they control the flow of poop and pee in New York City. And I'll tell you something very interesting. There is this park on the Upper West Side built under David Dinkins. It's up on 100 and it's a big park over the Hudson River. It's around 128th Street, 130th Street. I don't know if you've ever seen it going by in your cars or have ever been there, but that is a processing plant of all of the toilets on the Upper West Side. And before they put that up in the 1990s, you flushed your toilet on the Upper West Side and it went directly into the Hudson River. Now think about this. Think about this in terms of New York City and how far have we really gone from Stuyvesant's time in 1650. Okay, group 3. Very nice work, group 2. Group 3. Most of the
Yeah.
Luis?
Yeah. Me?
You're the spokesperson for group 3. Go ahead.
So the ways that he helped bolster the economy was he set quality standards for food like bread, meat, and beer, and he used things wampum for currency. I don't know how to pronounce that right.
Mm-hmm.
And he also he put like a specific spot for like a central market, and he announced regular market days to help boost the economy.
Very good examples. Let's take them one at a time. Why do you think the quality of the bread or the meat was so important to him and to you?
Because if you don't have good quality like bread and meat, then it's not good. Like people are not gonna buy it, and it's not gonna taste good. It could cause like sickness.
And it's more than that. It's now guaranteed by government, right? Today you'll go into a store and you'll see, a stamp on meat, right? United States Department of Agriculture you see this in all labels on all this products you buy. You say, oh, well, somebody's watching this to make sure the quality is good, right? And that became very important. And here are the origins of that. Here's the origins of governments saying, we guarantee this is edible. And it's still done today. And what about wampum? Does anybody know what wampum is?
No.
Anybody have any guesses about wampum? Okay, I'll tell you, wampum was a type of currency. Now, in order to have a market, you have to have some way, like we have dollar bills, we have coins and bills now, which we use to buy and sell things. We no longer say, oh, you've got a chair and I've got a sofa and I'll trade you. We buy a sofa and we sell a chair, or we work and we get money. And the money is what we use. It's the oil, it's the fuel for an economy. right? It's why everybody's going to get $1,400 in the mail soon. It's to get everybody buying stuff. So the fuel for a market economy is to have some currency that everybody trusts. Wampum, which was picked up from the Native Americans, is simply shells, pretty shells, all in a string. And you have a certain number of shells, depending on where you are, and that is used like money. There was also currency brought over from Europe at the time. There was the Spanish dollar, but wampum was seized by Stuyvesant saying, we're going to make this legitimate currency and we're going to standardize it. And so we're going to have a certain number of shells and we're going to say this is legitimate currency for our market. And so it's government coming in and guaranteeing that what seems like just, you picked up these shells on the beach. Suddenly, if they're in a string and the government says, okay, 16 of them on a string represents a certain value, everybody believes it. It's like the paper in your pocket. You believe that's worth something because government has guaranteed it. If it weren't guaranteed by government, you wouldn't feel like it's worth anything, nor would the merchants feel like it was worth anything. So this guaranteeing the value of wampum was very important for market economy. Anybody have thoughts on that in terms of what it means for today and for themselves in terms of using money or using credit cards? Or is there any connections you're making to government stepping in and guaranteeing the value of anything?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of like it kind of reminds me of how banks even do that, where you give your money to the bank and then there's like this number on your electronic device that says you have this much money, but like that money isn't there anymore. Like it's not really your money anymore. As soon as you give it to the bank uses it for other things as well. So
Right.
It's like, I don't know, the whole system is a little bit just weird for me because it's like it is just the government being like, hey, this is worth something, and then yeah, it's just not. I mean, it is, but in like a physical aspect, it's not worth anything. Like a $20 bill is just a piece of paper if like the government wasn't like, hey, this piece of paper is now worth $20 and you can buy things with this piece of paper.
And would you be more comfortable if you wanted a new chair of basically taking a sofa from your house and trading it with a neighbor and say, here's my sofa, I'll take your chair? Or would you rather have the banks and currency and or wampum? What would you prefer?
I think I don't know. I think I kind of like it's both. I like the idea of trading. I went to like a camping music festival for 5 days, and like everybody did that in our little camping community. Was like, it was like, if somebody needed this, they'd trade for this. Like, for example, someone was like, oh, I really like the scarves that you had hanging up. I'll give you I'll give you some chocolates and like a pizza from the pizza we're making if you give me a scarf. And everybody's like, yeah, I'm down. Or like, I'll give you a crystal for that necklace or that bracelet. And it was like this really cool trading aspect where we didn't have wallets, we didn't have credit cards, we didn't have anything, but whatever we came to the festival with was what we would trade, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. What's the limits of that in terms of growing a market, in terms of attracting people from all over to come to your central market? What's the limits? I feel the same way as you, by the way.
Well, yeah.
What is the limits of that in terms of growing your economy?
That's the thing, is like, I feel like it's fun for like us, like people, like we're like, oh, I'd love to trade stuff, that'd be awesome. But in terms of like an economy and like a larger scale, I feel like the trading system doesn't really work as well. I think that the currency and the government doing that kind of stuff is needed so that we can have an economy. Like,
and that's why Stuyvesant steps in and says, what you think is just shells is now going to be currency. And it's an amazing leap of faith. Like, because government says a you put this thread through all these shells. It's now acceptable currency. Or like, I give someone my credit card, and all of a sudden I can get a meal. Like, it's just this plastic thing, and all of a sudden there's trust. And I think at the heart of it, what Stuyvesant was saying is that if we put government here and say this is worth something, then people will trust that it's worth something. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Carmela.
No, you're good. You're good. I had a thought with that. That's very okay. It really relates to how like trendy stuff and like things that are like cool nowadays are only cool because somebody important said so. Like, it's not like trends are just that. Like, somebody important said, hey, I'm gonna make this a trend now. This is now a cool thing, or this is now an in thing. And that important person, like, people trust their judgment, and they're like, oh yeah, that is cool now. But it's like, did you think it was cool before that person said it? Like, no, you didn't. Like, a lot of fashion trends are like that. It's like people in the higher up are saying, hey, this is now what's in, this is now like what people should be wearing, and people follow.
And then to bring it back to Stuyvesant, which is so wonderful, because he was important, he's the director general.
Yeah, you should believed him.
Say it again.
They had to believe him.
That is the quote. They had to believe him. That, you hit it right. You perfect. They had to believe him. And because they had to believe him, and because it became law, wampum, just a bunch of shells on a string, became currency, legitimate currency. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But so believable given the way we trust credit cards and electronic purchasing and credit cards and banks. So it's very believable now. But for him in 1650, it was amazing that he did that. It was amazing. Okay, group four. Thank you, group three. Group four, what did you pick? Who's your spokesperson? Group four. Who is in group four, Allegra?
Hi, sorry. I'm gonna be the spokesperson.
Okay.
Okay, so we basically chose hold on. We did number 3 and we chose B. So Stuyvesant's rules and regulations, they acknowledged problems, found solutions, and promoted civic order. So the 2 we picked that were our favorite was 1, which was he appointed fire masters to inspect all houses and chimneys in the city to prevent fires and to collect fines. And the second one we chose was about the ones with the pigs and how they were eating people's plants and eating garbage. They were pooping everywhere. So then the city put rings in their noses to prevent them from rooting the city and causing damage to people's plants and for causing damage to the roads.
How did the rings work? Was there anything in the reading? Was it that people could grab the rings and take them away, or the rings actually prevented them from eating and getting into the ground? How did the rings work? Was there anything in the reading that revealed that to you?
Not that I read of, but I'd like to know, because I was really intrigued by that. I wanted to know myself, how the rings prevented them from rooting the city.
I mean, will you look into that and send me a note, and I'll send it to everybody else. Just
of course.
give it a Google or some quick look into. I'm curious. I mean, at first I thought, well, they probably had the rings and they would just grab they would say, get out of my yard, and they could grab, but maybe the rings were like putting a muzzle on them,
Yeah. Oh, but wouldn't people be too scared to grab them by the ring though? That's kind of scary.
Your vegetable garden, I don't know. Okay, nice work. Send me that. Okay, does everybody feel comfortable in answering one of these 3 questions, 3A, B, or C? Does anybody have questions on how to answer any of these questions? Are you all good on this? Christian?
I'm still a bit confused
Go ahead.
in general. Like how to, so whatever we find, we take a quote and say who it's from.
Yes, go ahead. Tell me more. You can't.
So I got it from there.
Okay, so more than that, right? When you pick your favorite three, you have to sort of do what we did together as a class. Tell me why you picked them. Make sure you have detail in terms of what you picked. And why was it so important in terms of what Stuyvesant did? You know, I mean, so what? You have to answer the question, so what? So he controlled some hogs. So he had fire marshals. So he controlled the quality of bread. So they made wampum currency. So they did a central market. So they controlled the privies. Okay, you give me these examples, then I want you to tell me why you personally think that was so important for the growth of this town. This isn't easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but do you get what I want?
Yes.
Good. Okay, it's 2:22 right now. Let's take a break. Everybody can go to the bathroom, do what they need to get a drink or some protein. Come back in 10 minutes at 2:32 and we'll do some writing together, okay? I'll see you in 10 minutes. Take a break, stretch your legs. Okay, so we've got 7 minutes of this video on New Amsterdam that I want you to look at. It is basically a review of what you've read in the primary source at last class and the secondary source today, and of what students have been saying and what I've been saying. So before we get to doing some writing, I wanted you to view this 7-minute excerpt from this video.
The most interesting thing about the Dutch period in New York to me is how much it set the pattern for behavior in New York. I forget what the exact ratio is, but there was an absurd ratio of citizens to taverns. It was virtually that every 20 guys had their own tavern. And it remains a ratio that's probably pretty close to the way the city has remained throughout its history.
It's like Dodge City. I mean, every other building is a bar, it's a mud hole, the sinkhole, the fort is falling down, pigs are rooting in the foundations. We need to shake this place up. And what they do is they, like a global corporation that they were, you can sort of think of the West India Company as sort of like Exxon with guns, I mean, with its own naval fleet. They transferred a branch manager from Curacao up to New York and said, we want you to whip this place into shape. And he did.
In the spring of 1647, New Amsterdam got a new director general, a 37-year-old ex-soldier and minister's son, who had lost his right leg to a cannonball during a naval battle in the West Indies. Iron-willed, short-tempered, and puritanical, Peter Stuyvesant had strict orders to clean the place up and make it pay. I shall govern you as a father his children, he told the stubborn and unruly citizens of New Amsterdam. And it was soon apparent he meant every word he said. Within weeks of his arrival, he had banned drinking on Sundays, outlawed knife fighting in public, and imposed stiff fines for missing church, speeding on Broadway, and fornicating with the Indians. It was the beginning of a long and stormy relationship between the Director General and his colonists. But though they bitterly resented Stuyvesant's high-handed style of rule, New Amsterdam began to take hold.
In an incredibly short space of time, he has slaves lay out the road up to Harlem, gets a wall built, has streets built, has the port fixed up, builds himself an extremely nice house, takes a large chunk of the slave population for himself, but in fact, makes this place into a functioning operation. The population increases. He establishes a base, an economic base, which is slaving. This is going to be a slave entrepot, and they're going to run slaves into here and then down to the Caribbean.
By 1653, in less than 5 years, Stuyvesant had managed to transform the disorderly backwater into a bustling town, with its own piers, canals, windmills, and schools, 300 row houses, a population of 3,000, and a 2,340-foot wall, stretching all the way from the East River to the Hudson, built to keep out hostile Indians and the English.
So many things about New York that we think of as being unusual or distinctive in the 20th century really have their origins hundreds of years in the past. One thinks of congestion. Every American, every person in the world really knows about New York and its unusual vertical shape and the crowded streets. But again, this goes back to the 17th century, really, when the little Dutch village was crowded down in lower Manhattan and all the houses were flush up against each other. Or the heterogeneity of the population already in the 1640s. There were 18 different languages being spoken on the streets.
Though it offended Stuyvesant's keen sense of order, to ease the chronic labor shortage, he reluctantly agreed to let in almost anyone willing to work. Census takers soon reported hearing a chorus of languages on the streets of New Amsterdam, including French, English, German, Spanish, Polish, and Portuguese. By 1654, the Dutch had become a minority in their own colony, and Stuyvesant himself feared that New Amsterdam would soon become too diverse to rule.
If nothing is done to stop it, I fear this colony will soon become a babel of confusion. We have here Papists, Mennonites, and Lutherans among the Dutch. Also many Puritans or Independents, and many atheists who conceal themselves under the name of Christians. It would create a still greater confusion if the obstinate and immovable Jews came to settle here.
But they soon did. In 1654, 23 Sephardic Jews sailed into the harbor, seeking refuge from the Spanish Inquisition in Brazil. Stuyvesant immediately petitioned the board of directors of the Dutch West India Company to have them turned away, insisting, he said, that none of the Jewish nation be permitted to infest New Netherland. To his astonishment, the petition was overturned. Chiding him for his bigotry, the directors reminded Stuyvesant that he was running a business colony, not a religious establishment, and that for the sake of that business, no one should be turned away.
The consciences of men ought to be free and unshackled, so long as they continue moderate, peaceable, inoffensive, and not hostile to government. Such have been the maxims of toleration by which this city has been governed. And the result has been that the oppressed and persecuted from every country have found among us an asylum from distress. Follow in the same steps, and you shall be blessed.
On September 12, 1654, the first Rosh Hashanah service in North America was held in private in New Amsterdam. It was the beginning of Congregation Sheareth Israel, the oldest existing Jewish congregation in the New World. It was also the beginning of the separation of church and state in America. In the centuries to come, the city's greatest challenges and greatest strengths would always come from its astonishing diversity.
New York did not remain Dutch long.
Oleg. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so before I say a few words, what struck you in this video about patterns that were set during the Dutch period that continue to today? Anything in the video you just saw struck you as patterns that were set in the 1650s that are still true for New York today?
Well, something that impacted me, Professor, was that back in that time, there were 18 different languages spoken in New York.
So good to say that. the diversity, the 18 different languages, French, German, Spanish, Polish, Portuguese. I mean, the diversity of New York was that pattern was set in the 1650s. And also in your notes, it's a city that welcomed everybody, that we thrive on our diversity. We thrive on tolerance. I mean, we may not like everybody we meet, but the agreement set in this time period was that we're not here to like everybody we meet. We're here to make money. This is a business community. This isn't Boston. I mean, Boston was a city on a hill. Boston was set up for religious freedom. We weren't set up for anything but trade. And we're gonna let everybody in because the busier the market and the more diversity, the more exciting New York was and is. So Christian, round of applause. Anybody else want to jump in on what patterns were set in the 1650s that you still see in New York today?
The row and the houses.
Go ahead, tell me a little more.
That time they started a little row. Right now, that like avenue or street, and the old houses. And if we go to Stuyvesant town, we can see some old houses like that old model.
It's so good you say that. The pattern of, even though they had so much land, all right, there you are in 1650, if so much, they built all the houses right next to each other. So this word density is so important that they huddled together. And in New York, to this day, we live so close to each other. And that pattern was set in the 1650s in New Amsterdam, this kind of living so tight to each other. You look at New Amsterdam, the original city, and everything is like right next to each other. So you're so right. That pattern of density, that pattern is, I don't know whether we felt safer being so close to each other, whether it was because it's trade and we can get to trade with each other. And it's, you know, it's not a farming community. It's a community where we kind of could do business on the streets. I mean, I'm giving you my own thoughts about why. But I'll tell you something, when I left the city a year ago to move up to the country, I didn't get a house like on a farm. I'm right in the middle of a little village because as a city boy, I'm more comfortable being so close to people. Anybody have any reactions to that about this kind of need for density, this need to be near each other?
It could also be maybe they saw a vision for a future where there would be limited space, or maybe they knew that whole island would be so populated that there's no way they can space out and have as many people as he envisioned there to be there.
Perfect. They realized, hey, wait a minute, we're on an island here.
Yeah, I added one information that if we go downtown, especially the Greenwich Village or the Stuyvesant town, we see the many streets are brick, not like the plan, the brick street. And this is stone, and this look like it's very old.
Yes. You go downtown when you can and when it's safe, below 14th Street, or if you go below Wall Street, which is where the wall was, you go below Wall Street and go down to the Battery, that's New Amsterdam. And you'll find all those streets, and it's amazing that everybody huddled down in this one little part of town. Anybody else want to say anything about what they picked up in the video that reminded them of a pattern that was set so many years ago, more than 300, 400 years ago?
Something that surprised me, that in the video it said that people spoke more than 18 languages.
Yeah, I know you said that. The diversity is impressive. Is there anything in the video that repeated what we've already done in class, either from the primary sources or from Gotham? Did you pick up that
Yeah.
he was repeating some of the stuff that we already knew?
It was like the one about the bar like how he was like, people are just out there drunk on the street fighting. How about we not do that? So he decreed where he said, you can't drink on Sundays before 2. Also, if you start fighting in the streets, you're going to get fined or you're going to do labor for the community.
Right, right. And it worked. It worked. By 1650, they had a population of 3,000 people. So what Stuyvesant did worked. We know living in New York today, we honor Stuyvesant's name. There's Stuyvesant High School. There's, there's the Stuyvesant Street down in the village that's still there. Stuyvesant Place is still there. Atta's going to send me a picture yes?
Isn't Bed-Stuy called Bed-Stuy because of that?
Yes. 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 There were 2 separate villages. There was the village of Bedford and the village of Stuyvesant. And Bed-Stuy is basically, over time, those villages grew so close to each other, they're the same thing. And so we call it Bed-Stuy, which is really Bedford, the village of Bedford and the village of Stuyvesant that kind of join each other. So yes, 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 yes. This was an important guy, and you're learning why he was so important. Okay? So everybody, what I want you to do in the next 12 minutes is do some writing. And by 3 o'clock, I want you to send it to me. It's going to be very simple. I want you to look at questions 3A, B, and C. Pick your favorite, meaning the one you can write about, right? And answer either A, B, and C in terms of give me 3 examples of either controlling social life, physical city, or boosting the economy. Give me some examples of that. Give me a citation of where you're getting it from the text or from a primary source or the video or from another student or from me. And most important, I want your thoughts. Most important, I want your reaction to Stuyvesant, to these decrees, to why you think personally it was so important and remains so important in New York. I'll stop talking. By 3 o'clock, I want you to press send and send me your answers. Go. And I'm here if you have questions. I'm not grading this, so I'm just going to correct it and send it back to you. And you can use it later for your answers for the question when you do it for homework. But it will not be graded. I'll just correct it and send it back to you.
I'm sorry, what was the questions we were supposed to do again?
Well, look at questions 3A, B, and C. Pick your favorite, meaning the one you could write about the easiest or the one you like the most. And let's say you picked 3A, which is how Stuyvesant controlled social life in New Amsterdam. Give me 3 examples, which we did together. Give me why you think these things were so important for New York's growth. And make sure you give me a citation about where you got the information from. I'm very interested in your thoughts, though.
Professor, these questions are on which document? 115A?
The answers are what you went over together, and it's both from Gotham text, which I think is 115A, and also from 126A. So those 2.
Okay. So you could just choose whichever one you want, whichever question.
Pick your favorite, meaning the one you like to write about, and go for it in terms of the examples. And really, really, I want you to be thinking about why these examples are so important to you. I want you to own these. I want you to own this history.